The message came through every communication channel in the galaxy at once. It was not a greeting or a trade offer. It was a scream for help. Elder's hands shook as he recorded the final transmission. Behind him, his world burned. The sky was black with ships that looked like insects made of metal and hate. The Ravagers had come to his 3 months ago, and now only 7 cities remained. Tomorrow, perhaps none would stand. "Please," whispered into the recorder, "anyone who can hear this. We are dying. The Ravagers are consuming our world. We have tried to fight. We have tried to run. Nothing works. If there is mercy in this galaxy, please help us." He sent the message and waited. He did not expect an answer. Across the galaxy, in a massive station that floated between stars, the Galactic Council received the message. 50 different species gathered in the Grand Chamber. They had heard pleas like this before. The Ravagers were a force of nature. When they came, worlds died. That was simply how the universe worked. "We should send observers," one council member said, "to record what happens for history." "We should send nothing," another replied. "The Ravagers do not stop. They do not negotiate. Sending ships would only give them more metal to consume." The council talked for hours. They made no decision to help. They had learned long ago that some enemies could not be fought. In the back of the chamber listened. He was the human ambassador, and he had been on the council for only 2 years. Earth was new to galactic politics. The other species still called humans the newcomers and the young ones. Some called them worse things when they thought he could not hear. "Stood up, we will go." The chamber fell silent. 50 pairs of alien eyes turned to look at him. Some of those eyes were on stalks. Some glowed. Some had 3 pupils. All of them looked at with the same expression: pity. "Ambassador," the council leader said gently, "your species is brave, but you do not understand. The Ravagers have destroyed civilizations that were ancient when your world was still cooling from formation. They are unstoppable." "Then they have never met us," said. "You have 12 ships," another council member said. "The Empire sent 5,000 ships against the Ravagers. They all died. What can 12 ships do?" Looked at the alien who had spoken. "We will find out." He turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the council members whispered to each other. Some thought humans were brave. Some thought humans were fools. Most thought the galaxy was about to witness its species go extinct. Contacted Earth immediately. The response came from the military command within an hour. Captain Park would lead the mission. She had commanded Earth's deep space frigate, the Tempest, for 3 years. She was the best they had. The orders went out: 12 ships, 3,000 crew members. They would leave within 48 hours. Found in his office that night. They had known each other since childhood. Had joined the military the same day had joined the diplomatic corps. "The council thinks we are going to die," said, sitting down without being invited. He had never been formal with, and he was not going to start now. "Probably," agreed. He was reading reports about the Ravagers. Every report said the same thing: unstoppable, merciless, inevitable. "So why are we going?" Looked up from his reading. "Do you remember what we learned in school about the distress calls Earth sent out during the Ice Age, the plagues, the wars?" No one answered, said quietly. "No one answered," repeated. "We were alone. We survived alone. Do you know what I think about every day? What if someone had answered? What if someone had helped?" Nodded slowly. "So we go because no one came for us." "We go because someone should have," said. "And now we can be the someone." On Earth, Park stood on the bridge of the Tempest and looked at her crew. They were young. Most had never seen real combat. They had trained in simulations and exercises, but this would be different. This would be real. "I will not lie to you," she said. "The galaxy thinks we are going to die. They think we are too weak, too new, too small. They have fought the Ravagers for thousands of years and always lost." She paused and looked each crew member in the eyes. "But they have never seen what we can do. They have never seen what happens when you back a human into a corner. They have never seen what we are willing to sacrifice for strangers who asked for help. The crew was silent, could see fear in their eyes. Good. Fear kept you alert. Fear kept you alive, as long as fear did not stop you from moving forward. "We leave in 48 hours, said. "Get your affairs in order, say goodbye to your families, and remember we are not going there to die. We are going there to fight." 2 days later, 12 human ships left Earth's orbit. The Galactic Council tracked their progress. Some council members said prayers for the humans. Others simply watched and waited. None of them expected to see those ships again. But Elder, huddled in a bunker on his dying world, received a message. It was short and direct. "This is Captain Park of the Earth vessel Tempest. We received your distress call. We are coming, hold on." For the first time in 3 months, Elder felt something he thought he had lost. He felt hope. The human fleet arrived at the system 6 days later. Elder stood on the observation deck of the last orbital station and watched the 12 ships emerge from faster-than-light travel. They were smaller than he expected. The Tempest, the largest vessel, was barely half the size of a standard cargo hauler. "Those are our saviors," another beside him whispered. "They look so fragile." But notice something else. The human ships did not slow down as they entered the system. They did not scan for threats or request docking permission. They came in fast and hard, like predators who had already decided to attack. Captain Park's face appeared on every screen in the station. Saw her for the first time and felt a chill run through his body. Her eyes. They pointed forward, not to the sides like civilized species. Predator eyes. Hunter eyes. "This is Captain Park," the human said. "We are here to evacuate civilians and engage the Ravager forces. All ships are ordered to the outer planets immediately. We will handle the rest." "Handle the rest," one of the military commanders sputtered. "Captain Park, there are over 10,000 Ravager vessels in this system. You have 12 ships." Smiled. It was not a comforting expression. Could see her teeth, flat ones for grinding plants but also sharp ones for tearing meat. An omnivore, a creature that could eat anything to survive. "Then the odds are almost even," said. The human ships split into 3 groups. The Tempest led 4 ships directly toward the Ravager main swarm. It was suicide. Every tactical program that had said so. But the humans did not seem to care about tactics or calculations. Commander stood in the transport bay of the assault ship Guardian. He was a large human, heavily muscled, with scars visible on his face and arms. His Marines stood in formation behind him, checking weapons and armor that looked primitive compared to Galactic Council technology. "Remember your training," told his Marines. "The Ravagers are tough, they are fast, they are vicious, but they are not creative, they do not adapt. They do what the hive mind tells them to do." He held up his rifle. "We adapt, that is what humans do, that is what makes us dangerous." The Guardian docked with the station 20 minutes later. When the airlock opened, the civilians saw the human Marines for the first time. Many screamed. They could not help it. The humans moved wrong. They walked with a predator's grace, smooth and efficient. Their armor was covered in weapons, guns, knives, explosive devices. One Marine had writing on his helmet, could translate it. It said, "Death smiles at everyone. Humans smile back." Approached Elder. The human stood 2 heads taller than him. "We are here to evacuate you," said. His voice was calm, professional. "Please gather all civilians and move to the transport ships. We leave in 30 minutes. 30 minutes, said. "We have 10,000 people on this station." "Then we need to move quickly." The evacuation began. Watch the human Marines work. They carried supplies that should have required 3 to lift. They ran without stopping, without showing fatigue. When a child fell and scraped her knee, a Marine stopped to bandage it with gentle hands that looked like they could crush stone. Dr. Sarah Jin set up a medical station in the transport bay. She was checking civilians for injuries when approached her. "Forgive me," said, "but I must ask, what kind of world produces creatures like you?" Sora looked up. She was smaller than most humans, but even she had that predator look in her eyes. "Earth is what the galaxy would call a death world," she said simply. "High gravity, extreme weather, thousands of species that evolve to kill, diseases that wipe out millions. We learn to survive all of it." Hal whispered. Sora smiled sadly. "We learn to be more dangerous than anything else on our planet. We learn to outlast predators. We learn to outthink them. We learned that if something wanted to kill us, we would make it regret trying." She returned to her work, noticed her hands, no claws, no natural weapons, just soft skin and flexible fingers, but those hands moved with absolute confidence. "Your species hunted animals to death," asked, "killed them with your hands." "Sometimes," Sora said, "but usually we did not need to kill them quickly. We just chased them for hours, for days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. That is what humans are good at. We do not give up, ever." Felt sick. The galaxy had sent him monsters wearing the face of civilization. Outside the station, the first battle began. Ravager scout ships, hundreds of them, swarmed toward the human fleet. The military observers expected the humans to retreat or use long-range weapons. Instead, ordered her ships forward, directly into the swarm. The Tempest opened fire with everything it had: missiles, energy weapons, and then something that made the observers cry out in horror. The human ship rammed directly into a Ravager cruiser, tearing it in half. "They are insane," an officer screamed. "The Tempest's hull is breached. They are venting atmosphere." But the human ship kept fighting. Even as air poured out into space, even as sections of the ship were exposed to vacuum, the crew continued to fire weapons. They could see humans in the damaged sections. They were wearing emergency suits and still manning their stations. "Why are they not evacuating those sections?" the officer demanded. His voice came over the communication channel. She was calm, almost bored. "Because the weapons still work," she said, "and we still have targets." The battle lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, every Ravager scout ship was destroyed. The human fleet had taken heavy damage, but all 12 ships were still operational. Watch the aftermath in stunned silence. The Ravagers were supposed to be unstoppable, but the humans had stopped them, not with superior technology or numbers, with sheer, brutal refusal to quit. Approached him again. The Marine was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but he ignored it. "Evacuation complete," reported. "All civilians accounted for. We are ready to depart." "You are injured," said. Touched the wound and shrugged. "It is just blood. I am still functional." Just blood, still functional, as if injury was simply an inconvenience to be ignored. As the transport ship pulled away from the station, looked back at the human fleet. They were damaged, bleeding atmosphere and leaking fuel, but they were already reforming their battle lines, already preparing for the next fight. "We asked for help," whispered, "and the stars sent us predators." Next to him, a young child looked up with wide eyes. "Are the humans going to save us?" Looked at the child. Then he looked at the human ships, covered in scars but still moving forward. "Yes," he said quietly, "they are going to save us, or die trying, and I think dying is not something humans are good at." The Ravager Hive Queen had consumed 17 civilizations. She had watched species beg and pray and fight and die. She had never known defeat. She had never known fear. Until now. The humans did not fight like other species. They did not form defensive lines or retreat to regroup. They attacked, always, even when wounded, even when outnumbered, even when logic said they should run. The Hive Queen did not understand them, so she sent more ships, thousands more. Surely numbers would overwhelm these strange creatures. Arrived with the reinforcement fleet 3 days after the first battle. He brought 30 more ships and 10,000 additional crew members. It was still a fraction of the Ravager forces, but greeted him with a smile that showed teeth. "About time," she said. "I was getting bored." Her ship was a mess. The Tempest had hull breaches on 3 decks. The medical bay was full. Half the weapons were offline, but stood on her bridge like she commanded a pristine flagship. "What do you need?" asked. "Time," said, "and someone to make these bugs regret waking up today." Sung was the kind of human that made other species nervous. He was a special operations leader, trained in infiltration and sabotage. His team of 20 soldiers looked like they enjoyed violence a little too much. "We are going into a Ravager hive ship," told his team. "Intelligence says the local command node is there. We destroy it, and 10,000 drones lose coordination." "What is our extraction plan?" one soldier asked. Smiled. "We blow up the hive ship and ride the explosion out. Should be fun." They launched from the assault carrier Shadow in a small stealth pod. The Ravagers never saw them coming. The pod latched onto the hive ship's hull and the team cut their way inside. The interior of the hive ship was toxic to most species. Acidic atmosphere, high radiation, temperature swings that would kill in seconds. The humans wore sealed suits and walked through it like they were taking a casual stroll. "This is disgusting," one soldier muttered, looking at the organic walls that pulsed like living tissue. Focus said, "We have a job to do." They encountered Ravager warriors in the corridors. The aliens were 2 meters tall, covered in natural armor, with claws that could cut through steel. The galaxy feared them as perfect killing machines. Shot the first one in the head. It dropped. The others charged. The humans met them not with retreat but with violence that matched the Ravager's claw for claw. One soldier pulled out a knife when his gun jammed. He stabbed a Ravager warrior 3 times before it stopped moving. Another soldier used her bare hands to snap a Ravager's neck when it got too close. "Did we just win a hand-to-hand fight with Ravagers?" someone asked, breathing hard. "Apparently," replied. "He was bleeding from a cut on his arm, but he ignored it. Keep moving." Meanwhile, Engineer Myra was doing something that would horrify the Galactic Council if they knew. She had captured live Ravager specimens and was testing them. Testing them with diseases from Earth. "They are vulnerable to modified anthrax," she reported to, "and the flu virus mutates fast enough to overcome their immune response. We can weaponize this." "Do it," said without hesitation. "Captain, the Council has rules about biological warfare," one officer said carefully. Looked at him with cold eyes. "The Council is not here. We are, and I will use every weapon we have to save these people." The biological weapons launched 3 hours later, specially designed missiles that burst in the atmosphere of Ravager-controlled areas. The effect was immediate and terrible. Ravager drones began dying by the thousands. The hive ships pulled back, trying to understand what was killing them. "They do not know what disease is," Myra explained too. "Their species evolved with a hive mind that shares immunity, but our diseases work differently. Each virus adapts individually. They cannot keep up." "Is this cruel?" asked quietly. Myra looked at him. "They were eating a civilization alive. I can live with being cruel to them." The Ravagers tried their standard tactic, overwhelming numbers. They sent wave after wave of ships, expecting the humans to break under the pressure. Instead, gave an order that made the observers think she had gone insane. "Launch nuclear weapons, all of them." "Captain, those are planet killers," her weapons officer said. "I know what they are. Fire them." Earth had brought nuclear weapons to space, weapons designed to destroy entire cities in seconds. The other species had abandoned such weapons ago as too dangerous, too uncontrolled. Humans had simply made them bigger. The nuclear explosions lit up space like new stars. Thousands of Ravager ships vanished in the fireballs. The Hive Queen recoiled in shock. What kind of species carried doomsday weapons as standard armament? "We have been preparing to destroy ourselves for centuries," said calmly, watching the explosions. "Using those weapons on enemies is easy." His team reached the command node deep in the Hive ship. It was a massive organic computer, pulsing with disgusting life. Ravager warriors poured out of side passages to defend it. "Set the charges," ordered. "I will buy you time." He stepped forward alone and opened fire. The other soldiers worked frantically, placing explosives around the node while fought off wave after wave of Ravagers. He took wounds, multiple wounds. Claws ripped his suit. Acid burned his skin. He kept fighting. "Charges set," someone shouted. "Go, go, go." The team ran for the extraction point. Followed, bleeding and limping. They reached their pod with Ravagers right behind them. The pod launched just as the explosives detonated. The Hive ship tore itself apart from the inside. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. "Is everyone alive?" asked, checking his team. "Barely," someone groaned. "You are bleeding everywhere, Commander." "Then I am still alive," said. He closed his eyes and let the medical officer start patching him up. On the surface of Prime, Commander and his Marines held the last city. Ravager ground forces attacked in waves that would have broken any other species. But humans had learned long ago how to hold ground. They had done it in trenches during world wars, in bunkers during sieges, in cities during invasions. They knew how to dig in and refuse to move. A Ravager warrior charged at. It was massive, armored, deadly. Met it with his rifle, then his knife, then his fists when the knife broke. They fought for 30 seconds that felt like hours. The Ravager stopped moving. Stood over it, breathing hard, covered in blood, some of it his, most of it not. "Are they retreating?" a Marine asked. Looked at the battlefield. The Ravagers were pulling back, not just here but everywhere. Their ships were leaving orbit. "We won," someone whispered in disbelief. "We survived," corrected. "That is what humans do best." The Hive Queen sent out a signal that every Ravager in the system received. The message was simple and unprecedented in their species' history. "Retreat, mark this system, mark this species. Death world predators, avoid at all costs." For the first time in 10,000 years, the Ravagers ran away. Elder stood in the ruins of his city and watched the human ships in orbit. They were damaged, barely functioning, but they were still there. "They saved us," he whispered. "The monsters saved us." The silence after the battle was worse than the noise during it. Dr. Sora Jin walked through the medical bay of the Tempest and tried not to cry. She had been trained for this. She had studied combat medicine, trauma surgery, emergency response. But training did not prepare you for the reality of broken bodies and empty eyes. "How many?" Captain asked quietly. She stood at the entrance to the medical bay, looking at the rows of beds. 743 dead, Sora said. Her voice was flat, professional. If she let emotion in now, she would collapse. "Another 1,000 wounded. 200 of those will never fight again." Nodded slowly. She had sent 3,000 crew members into battle. 1/4 of them would not be going home. "The count 3 billion saved," said. 3 billion people alive because of what we did. "Is that supposed to make it hurt less?" Sora asked. "No," admitted. "It just makes it worth it." Sora looked at the wounded humans in their beds. One soldier was missing an arm. Another had burns over half his body. A young woman from engineering stared at the ceiling with eyes that did not see anything anymore. "They will have scars," Sora said. "Physical and mental. Some of them will never be the same." "None of us will be the same," replied. Elder visited the human ships 3 days after the battle. He insisted on it, even though his advisors said it was too dangerous. He needed to see for himself what the humans had sacrificed. The Tempest was a wreck. Entire sections were still sealed off because of hull breaches. The corridors smelled like burnt metal and blood. Emergency lights flickered in places where the main power had failed. But the crew was still working, still repairing, still fighting to keep their ship alive. Found Commander in the medical bay. The big Marine was sitting on a bed while a medic stitched a wound on his shoulder. There were other wounds, claw marks, burns, bruises that covered most of his body. "You should be resting," said. Shrugged, then winced at the pain the movement caused. "I can rest when we get home. Right now, my Marines need me." "How many did you lose?" 47, said quietly. 47 good soldiers who will never see Earth again. "I am sorry," said. It felt inadequate. What words could cover that loss? "Do not be sorry," said. "They knew the risks. They chose to come anyway. That is what it means to be human. We choose to fight even when we are afraid." Sat down beside the big Marine. "I do not understand your species. You terrify me. You are violent and dangerous, and you carry weapons that could destroy worlds. But you also flew across the galaxy to save strangers. Why?" Was quiet for a long moment. The medic finished stitching and moved to the next patient. "Because no one came for us," finally said. "Earth went through ice ages and plagues and wars. We screamed into the void for help and no one answered. We survived alone, but we remembered what that felt like, to be helpless, to be abandoned." He looked at with tired eyes. "We cannot change our past, but we can make sure other species do not face the same loneliness, even if it costs us everything." Sat in his quarters and shook. He could not stop shaking. The battle was over. They had won, but his hands would not stop trembling. He had killed Ravagers, dozens of them. He had watched them die and felt nothing. No remorse, no hesitation, just cold efficiency. Now in the quiet he felt everything. The fear he had pushed down, the horror he had ignored, the weight of all those deaths. A knock on his door, entered without waiting for permission. He sat down beside his old friend and said nothing, just sat there. "I was terrified," finally whispered. "Every second I thought I was going to die." "But you did not run," said. "No, I kept fighting, even though I was afraid, even though I wanted to run." "That is courage," said. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what needs to be done despite the fear." Looked at his hands, they were still shaking. "I do not feel brave, I feel broken." "Then you are human," said gently. "We break, we hurt, we feel everything. That is what makes us different from the Ravagers. They are a hive mind. They do not question or doubt or suffer. We do, and we fight anyway." On the memorials were being built. They honored their dead with gardens and quiet reflection. The humans honored their dead differently. Stood before her assembled crew in the Tempest's main hangar. 743 names were displayed on a screen behind her. She read each name aloud, every single one. Lieutenant Ensign Park, Corporal Lee Menu. It took 2 hours. Her voice never wavered. Each name was spoken clearly, with respect, with remembrance. When she finished, the crew stood in silence. Then, as one, they saluted their fallen comrades. "They gave everything," said. "They will be remembered, not just by us but by the 3 billion who live because of their sacrifice." The Galactic Council observer watched from the back of the hangar. He had been recording everything since the battle began. The Council would want a full report. But he did not understand what he was seeing. These humans had lost so many. They had taken wounds that would cripple other species. Their ships were barely functional, yet they stood here, honoring their dead with quiet dignity. They did not celebrate their victory. They mourned their losses. "You are crying," Elder said softly. He stood beside, also watching the ceremony. Touched his face. He was crying. He did not know when it had started. "They are monsters," whispered. "They carry doomsday weapons. They use biological warfare. They fight with a savagery that terrifies me." "Yes," agreed. "But they also do this," continued, gesturing to the memorial. "They remember, they grieve, they care." Yes, said again. How can they be both? Looked at the human crew, at their scars and their tears and their unbroken spirits. Because being a monster is not about capability, said slowly. It is about choice. These humans have the capacity for terrible violence, but they also have the capacity for incredible compassion. They choose when to be monsters, and they choose when to be heroes. The ceremony ended, the crew dispersed. Life on the damaged ships continued, repairs were made, the wounded were tended, plans were drawn for the journey home. Stood alone in the hangar, looking at the names on the screen. We won, she said quietly to the empty room, but the price was high. Behind her, Sora entered. The doctor looked exhausted. She had not slept in 3 days. The wounded are stable, Sora reported. We will not lose anyone else. Good, said, then softer, thank you. For what? For keeping them alive, for giving them a chance to go home. Sora stood beside her captain and looked at the names. Do you think it was worth it? Did not answer immediately. She thought about the billions of lives saved, the children who would grow up because humans had chosen to fight. Ask me in 10 years, finally said. When the nightmares have faded, when the wounds have healed, ask me then if saving 3 billion strangers was worth losing 743 friends. What will you answer? Smiled sadly. I will say yes, because that is what being human means. We pay the price, we carry the scars, and we do it again if we have to. The two women stood in silence, honoring the dead, carrying the weight of the living. 6 months after the Battle of Prime, the galaxy was different. The news had spread faster than anyone expected. The Ravagers had retreated. The unstoppable force had been stopped, and the species that did it was barely 2 decades into space exploration. Stood before the Galactic Council once more. The chamber was full. Every species wanted to hear what the human ambassador would say. 3 more species have requested human protection, the council leader announced. The Confederacy, the Collective, the Commonwealth, they want Earth ships in their space. They want human soldiers on their worlds. Listened carefully. 6 months ago, these same council members had humanity. Now they looked at him with a different expression, fear mixed with hope. We cannot protect everyone, said calmly. We have 42 ships, 13,000 crew members. We are not an army, we are not peacekeepers. Then what are you? A council member demanded. Smiled slightly. We are what happens when you evolve on a death world and somehow survive long enough to reach the stars. Another council member spoke up. This one was from the Empire, a militaristic species that had avoided conflict with the Ravagers through tribute and territory concessions. You used nuclear weapons, they said, biological warfare, tactics that violated every convention of civilized combat. How can we trust you to protect anyone when you are willing to use such methods? The chamber fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear the answer. Looked directly at the. Tell me, how many worlds has your empire sacrificed to the Ravagers? How many billions died while you paid tribute and hoped they would leave you alone? The shifted uncomfortably, but did not answer. We did not come to Prime to be civilized, continued. We came to win, to save lives. We used every weapon we had because the alternative was watching 3 billion people die. If that makes us monsters, then we accept the title. He paused and looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching him. But here is what you need to understand about humans. We choose when to be monsters. We do not unleash that violence randomly or for conquest. We save it for when innocents need protecting, for when the alternative is unthinkable. The council leader raised a hand for silence. The galaxy is afraid of humanity now. You must understand this. Some species want your protection. Others want you contained. This council must decide what to do with you. Straightened, you will do nothing with us. Earth is not asking for permission to exist. We offered help to those who needed it. We will continue to offer that help, but we answer to no one except ourselves and those we choose to protect." It was the most defiant statement ever made in the council chamber. Some members looked outraged, others looked impressed. All of them recognized the truth. Humanity could not be controlled. Captain Park was no longer just a captain. She had been promoted to Fleet Admiral. At 35 years old, she was the youngest person to ever hold the position. She stood on the bridge of Earth's ship, the Defender. It was larger than the Tempest, more heavily armed, built with lessons learned from the Battle of Prime. "We have a new distress call," her communications officer reported. "They are under attack by pirates. They are requesting assistance." Looked at her crew. Many of them were veterans of Prime. They had scars, nightmares, losses they still carried. "What do you think?" she asked her executive officer, Young Min. He was young, barely 23, but he had proven himself in battle. "They helped evacuate civilians during the battle," Young Min said. "They chose to help when others ran. I think we owe them the same." Nodded. "Set course for space. Best speed." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this before. They would do it again. Because that was what Earth's fleet did now. They answered distress calls. They protected the vulnerable. They stood between predators and prey. Elder had become the ambassador to Earth. He was the first alien to establish a permanent embassy on the human. Earth terrified him. The gravity was crushing. The weather was violent. The native life forms were aggressive and dangerous. Even the plants had thorns and poisons. But the humans who walked through this nightmare world every day were kind to him. They helped him adjust. They shared their culture and their food and their stories. One day, a human child approached him in a park. She could not have been more than 7 years old. "Are you an alien?" she asked with innocent curiosity. "Yes," said gently. "Did the humans save your world?" "Yes." The child thought about this. "My mom is a soldier. She went to save people on another planet. She has scary dreams sometimes now." Looked at the child. "I know. The humans who saved my world have scary dreams too." "But she still goes," the child said. "Every time someone needs help, she goes, even though it scares her." "That is very brave," said. "That is being human," the child said simply, then ran off to play. Sat in the park and watched humans go about their daily lives. They laughed and played and loved. They were not monsters all the time, just when they needed to be. In a military academy on Earth, young cadets learned about the Battle of Prime. It was taught as required study, every detail, every tactic, every sacrifice. "Why did we go?" an instructor asked his class. One cadet raised her hand. "Because they asked for help." "And why did we win?" "Because we refused to quit." The instructor nodded. "Remember this. We did not have better weapons. We did not have superior numbers. We won because we were willing to pay a higher price, because we understood that some things are worth dying for." He pointed to a memorial wall. 743 names were carved there. These people paid that price. Your job is to make sure their sacrifice meant something, to make sure that when someone cries out for help, Earth answers, every single time. The class stood and saluted the names on the wall. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the final vote was taken. After weeks of debate and argument, a decision was reached. "The Treaty of Terra is hereby approved," the council leader announced. "Earth will maintain an independent defense force. They will be allowed to respond to distress calls within council space. In exchange, humanity agrees to share its military technology and tactical knowledge with council defense forces." Diplomat represented Earth at the signing. She was calm and professional as she affixed Earth's seal to the treaty. "This treaty recognizes something important," said. "Humanity is not asking to be in charge. We are not seeking dominance. We simply refuse to stand by when innocent people need help." She looked at the assembled council members. The galaxy feared our arrival. You expected us to be conquerors or fools. We are neither. We are survivors, and we will use everything we learned surviving our own world to protect others. The treaty was signed. Earth was now officially recognized as a defensive power. The monsters had been given legitimacy. Later and sat together in Earth's embassy, looking at reports. 3 more distress calls this week, said. We cannot answer them all. We will answer what we can, replied, and train others to answer the rest. The council is afraid of us. Good, said. Fear from the strong keeps them honest. Hope from the weak keeps us honest. On the Defender, Admiral received a message from Elder. It was simple. Thank you for everything, though we'll never forget what humanity did for us. Smiled and sent a reply. You are welcome, and tell your people, if you ever need help again, you know where to find us. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, someone was in trouble, someone was crying out for help, and Earth would answer. Because 6 months ago, a dying species had cried to the stars for aid. The galaxy had expected angels. They received monsters instead. Monsters who chose to be heroes. And that made all the difference. Young men approached on the bridge. Admiral, we are receiving a signal. Multiple signals, actually. Species across the galaxy are asking the same question. What question? Will Earth help us too? Looked at her crew, at the veterans who carried scars, at the young officers who had not yet seen battle, at the empty spaces where friends used to stand. Send the same reply to all of them, ordered. Earth will stand with those who cannot stand alone. We will fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We answered the stars once. We will answer them every time. The message was sent. Across the galaxy, desperate species received it and felt something they had not felt in a long time. They felt hope. Because somewhere in the darkness, Earth's monsters were watching, ready to answer the next call, ready to pay the price, ready to be the heroes the galaxy needed, even if it cost them everything. The stars had called, Earth had answered. And the universe would never be the same.